lost my job to Orlando Cepeda, Billy McCovey. And when he came out, obviously, I got traded to the Cardinals. And then played the Cardinals about 9 years, went to the Phillies for 3 years, back to the Cardinals because Bing Devine, who was then general manager, wanted me to go to the minors and manage a year and then come back and manage the team. And I had enough of baseball, put a uniform on. I didn't think I wanted to do that. So I had worked in broadcasting in St. Louis while I was a player. And then when I got traded to the Phillies, I worked in television for 3 years, finally became a sports director. And that allowed me then to move to the Yankees in 1971. And we stayed with the Yankees for 18 years. The highlight of my career, obviously, was broadcasting Phil Rizzuto. And during about the 1976 World Series, the Yankees in Cincinnati. And then the National League called and wanted me to run the league for 4 years, which I did. And I stayed there 4 years. In the 5th year, when we lost our commissioner, and then finally left and went home, and I've been fishing and motorhoming and having fun ever since.
Well, that's great.
And laughing.
That's great. So when you became president of the National League in April of 1989, expansion was on the table. Was it really on the table, or what was the status at that point in time?
Well, basically, I think what had happened was that Washington and the politicians in Washington wanted a team, and they really wanted a team. They were putting all kinds of pressure on baseball to move to Washington. And Washington really was one of the teams that applied for a franchise. But I had played in the Western League in 1954 for Sioux City. And we had played in Denver. We had Denver, we had Omaha, we had Sioux City, we had Des Moines. And every time we played, and two things I liked about Denver. Number one, the light air. They couldn't throw curveballs, so I hit a lot of home runs there. But the thing that impressed me and stayed with me, the park was full every game. The park was full every game. And so when I became league president, I remembered that. And when we decided to expand 2 teams, Denver was going to get a team because I had played there. I knew the fans' enthusiasm for baseball. I knew they expressed that enthusiasm by coming out to the ballpark. And I also knew that there were going to be a lot of home runs hit there. I knew as league president, I chose the people who were on the committee, the expansion committee. That was, I forget, John McMullen, the guy who owns the Mets, and Peter O'Malley. I believe the 3 of them. And I chose the 2 of them because they wanted expansion, O'Malley and Wilpon. John McMullen did not want expansion, but it got to a point where he needed some money, so he needed that $15 million that he would have got. So we had 3 guys who wanted expansion. And then of course, we had 13 cities, including Denver, wanted a team, and I played in Denver. That's where we're going. I mean, I know where we're going. We're going to Denver, number one. And the choice for the other people was to choose where to go for the other team, and they chose Miami.
So you thought Denver was the front runner?
I knew Denver. No, Denver was the front runner because
from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean there was no choice. First of all, we needed the Rocky Mountain area. The Cardinal games might have gone to Denver, but they went down a little bit south toward Louisiana. And I knew that we had the league rivalries then too. And if I knew that we had to go to Denver because of the Rocky Mountain area going all the way up for broadcast rights and whatever. But mainly, Denver fans filled that ballpark up every day when I played there. And obviously they did that once they got the team. So it was an easy decision. Now the other decision was a little bit tougher because you had Miami and a couple other cities that wanted a team.
That's great. It's good to hear we were a front runner from the very beginning.
I mean, there was no shot. I made the decision.
Wow, well,
But that was
that's
easy because
fantastic.
you know,
Yeah.
it's nice to have somebody who has experienced those, has experienced the fans there. They fill the stadium up. They like baseball. Easy decision to make.
Well, we did a video that was called "A Time Zone Without a Team," and Bob Uecker did it for us.
Who?
Bob Uecker did the video
Oh,
for
Euchre
us.
did?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. And
All
so
right,
we used that to kind of promote the fact that we were in the middle of the country and there was a whole time zone that didn't have a Major League Baseball
I
team.
don't think we saw that.
Well, we sent it out, so.
Well, it was no sweat.
Right.
You know, you wasted your time. Because anybody who played in that Western League when I played there in, what, 1950, well, it was 53, I think, 54, I played with Sioux City. And you had an in with the guy who was going to choose the teams,
Right.
you know, Sioux Cities anyway.
Right. Well, boy, that's great to hear. So
So you wasted a lot of time, you know, and all of the things that you did, all you had to do is go back and say, Bill, I played here.
there we go.
all you
And that
had
would have been it, huh?
Yeah.
That's great to hear. So I read in your book that right after you became president, you had an owners meeting, and then there was a press conference after that. And Bart Giamatti was standing out there, and the reporter evidently asked him if there was going to be expansion. And I guess he just said yes, even though the owners hadn't voted in favor of it. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. It's funny. We were in Chicago, I think, and the owners were talking about expansion. And when Bart said that, I sort of nudged him and I said, "The owners haven't voted on that." He says, "No." That was one of my first meetings. Bart was a great guy. He was great for baseball, and I really I missed him when he left us, and I still think about him. I miss him.
Right. Yeah, he seemed like he was.
Yeah.
So when Major League Baseball decided to do expansion, was it a result of the pressure from congressmen and Tim Wirth and other people, or were you just ready for expansion at that
We're ready
point
for
in time?
expansion. The American League had two more teams than we had, and obviously they had more income than we had, and also it had to do with the schedule. So those three things, plus I think Denver was ready. We had a little bit of problem with the other team, but I thought Miami was my other favorite because I played in Puerto Rico and Santo Domingo, and I knew how much the Spanish people enjoyed baseball. So the two teams that I really wanted were the ones that got the teams, although I could have been outvoted 3-1 or whatever.
But Washington D.C. wanted a team, Tampa
But they had
Bay,
no money. Tampa Bay.
Orlando.
Right. New Orleans wanted a team. I think Sacramento wanted
Yeah.
a team. Even the city up in Canada, Vancouver wanted a team. So there were 13 teams, 13 cities that thought they. I think even San Antonio wanted a team, or they thought they should have a team or could have a team, but I'm not
Right.
even could afford it.
Right. And Phoenix obviously wanted a team too, or
They
claimed
had no
they
money.
did. They had no money.
No, they had one fellow from Boston, who was a millionaire who threw batting practice in Boston, and he was the only person I think who was a backer for Phoenix at that time. Although they came up to New York and they talked to us about a team, but they had no resources at all at that point.
Well, I had heard that Reinsdorf had convinced Tampa Bay to build a stadium, so the
Well-
White Sox might move there, and then they didn't. So what's the story
Reinsdorf
behind?
was smart.
Okay.
He told Chicago he was going to go to St. Petersburg because St. Petersburg had built this monstrosity for him. And he used that as a way of getting Chicago to build him a team, a stadium,
Right.
which Chicago did. And when we decided to expand the two teams, Reinsdorf was on the phone every day saying, "Hey, take the team to St. Petersburg." What he didn't know is that I had trained in St. Petersburg with the Cardinals, and all of those fans that filled up the park in spring training were from St. Louis. they went home after the spring training. And not only that, when we would drive from our hotel to the park, we would see a lot of elderly people in line waiting to get their blood pressure. Now, those, at that point, I'm not sure that they would have bought a lot of season tickets. So it's good that my experiences over the years played a big part in the team where we were going. And we sort of, I laughed at Reinsdorf.
So that went nowhere. So they built the stadium, had to wait a long time before they got
Well,
a
the
team.
stadium, we went down there. They were also part of it, but fly balls hit the ceiling. It was an ugly, not a very good looking stadium, and it wasn't a stadium for baseball. But Reinsdorf got his stadium in Chicago paid for, I guess, by the city, and obviously he had an obligation to try to get us to go. And St. Petersburg has a team now, so they've got a team.
Right. So when the American League got wind of the fact that the National League was going to expand, I heard that they wanted to try to get some of the expansion fees.
They wanted 51% of the expansion fee.
Really?
When they had expanded, they brought the team back from Seattle and Milwaukee, and they put another team, I think, in Toronto. And they said, well, you guys shouldn't get any more money. In fact, I'm not even sure they told us they were doing that. Of course, I wasn't the president. But when we decided to expand, they would have gotten 51% of expansion fees, which was about $190,000, something like that. Each team had to pay $95
million.
Fee to get into the
Right.
National League, and they wanted us. Well, we said, wait a minute. We fought tooth and nails, and finally it hurt them because they, I think we got, they only got about 30-some million dollars to split among 16 teams, and they had to give up almost the same amount of players we had to give up. We had to give up. They could protect. We could protect 15, and then 19, and then 23. Well, they could protect 16, and then 20, and 24, something like that. So, they, in fact, one owner said, "This is the worst deal that."
Oh, really?
They shouldn't have asked for any money. They would have been better off.
Right.
But I laughed at them. Greedy.
Right. But that obviously didn't get in the way of the expansion happening.
No. We voted to expand. I'm not sure they had a vote in that. We voted to expand, and we took the two best cities at that point. In fact, one of the best baseball cities in the minor leagues, at least when back in the 50s when I played. No doubt in my mind that Denver would be successful.
Okay. Well, in February 1991, we were told that we were on the short list for the expansion teams, and there were there were a total of 6 teams on the short list. Why was Denver, I mean, you alluded to it before, but why did Denver make the short list and eventually be selected?
Because you had the best facilities. I mean, the best future facilities and the best baseball background. You think about all those cities I mentioned earlier, none of them had the baseball history that Denver had. And I played there, and I've been part of that history. A lot of those guys who were the owners didn't know anything about Denver, but I did know the city. I did know the fans. I forget the other. We played in Colorado Springs, Denver. There's another team down there Dodgers had. But Denver, I believe, led the league in attendance every year. They were around.
Right.
Just great baseball
Right.
fans. And that's where we were.
So the fact that we had already approved a tax to build a new stadium, did that help?
No.
It didn't?
No, that didn't help. Didn't hurt.
You would have played in the old Mile High Stadium?
It didn't hurt. I'm talking about choosing the cities and choosing
Right.
the two cities.
Right,
Now,
right.
you might have sent us all that, but I said, hey, we're going to go to Denver. And you got everything together, and you did do everything that you just mentioned. And you played the first couple of years in the football field, didn't you?
Well, in the old Mile High Stadium, which was
Yeah.
both a baseball and a football field.
Yeah. My point, it was an easy, you didn't have to do anything. If you hadn't even submitted a object or whatever, if you hadn't submitted what do they call that thing?
proposal? Or
proposal,
yeah.
whatever. I'm
Right.
83 now. I've lost the words, but I was said, go get some money. We're going to go to Denver.
Wow, that's
Put
great to
something
hear.
together.
That's great to hear. So,
What other city? There were no other cities.
yeah,
There's no other city at that point that could afford a baseball team. Washington was the only other one, and they had lost a team, and they wanted to bring Montreal back.
so do you remember when you arrived in Denver to kind of inspect the site with the expansion committee, and you
Yeah.
flew into the airport, and then you got on a helicopter, and they flew you over the site of the new stadium,
That I don't.
and then
remember.
took you into Mile High Stadium, where you used to
Little bit,
play?
that
Yeah.
was years ago, and I'm 83 now. But I remember flying in because that airplane we flew in on was not in good shape. The two guys who won that franchise were from Youngstown, Ohio, which is about 14 miles from where I lived in Warren, Ohio. And obviously didn't work out for many reasons. But I always wondered why more people hadn't been a part of the ownership group in the first place. Because these guys from Ohio.
Right. Well, it was because of the economic depression. That's why we didn't have a lot of local people standing up and moving to the
Nothing
front.
could have been more depressed than Youngstown, Ohio at that time. The steel mill area. I'm from there. Warren,
Right.
Youngstown, Steubenville, and steel was just down there. So, but
Right.
you did get the team, and it's been very, very, very successful.
So you came to Denver after that, and to kind of have a meeting with Paul Jacobs and others at the United Bank Center. Do you remember
Right.
that experience?
Yes.
You walked in there, and there was a couple thousand people in the lobby.
We told you not to do that. We
Yes,
said we don't want any we don't want any of these fans around. And I talked to Paul later, and he sort of chuckled. He says, "I know you told us, but we did it anyway." The funny thing, my daughter was at Colorado State, and I remember Paul talking to me because we were talking about something. I said, "Which way is Colorado State?" And he let me know, "It's up that way." And I said, "My daughter's there in college." And I think he may have written that in his book or whatever, but I sort of chuckled.
So even though you told us not to do that kind of thing and we did it, was that good or bad?
It didn't make any difference.
Didn't make any
We
difference?
can't tell people what to do.
Okay.
No, it didn't. It made no difference. We were going to Denver because of my experience with them.
Right. Wow. Wow. That's very interesting. And then you...
And we needed the money. We needed the $95 million.
well, the franchise fee was significantly more than the, what, $7 million? That,
It was 95.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 95 was significantly more than the previous franchise fee
Oh, sure.
a bunch of years earlier,
Yeah.
which was like 6 or 7 million.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. How did you arrive at the 95 million?
Well, just threw a figure out. We had two people. We were talking 75 to 135, and we sort of figured 95, which was a bargain. Today,
That certainly was,
Yes.
yeah. 'Cause
it's probably worth a couple billion now.
well, I've seen estimates about $1 billion, yeah.
Only $1 billion?
Yep.
I would think it would be worth a couple billion.
Well, it will be someday.
How's attendance? I haven't followed baseball much.
Oh,
since.
attendance is, they were 2,850,000 last year,
Yeah.
so that's pretty strong.
Well, they can hire me, and I'll come out and get them $2 billion.
There we go.
Just kidding. No, I don't have anything with baseball anyway. No. He's Miami sold for $1.2 billion, right?
I'm not sure, I think so.
And they
Yeah.
weren't drawing that well. Yeah, $1.2 billion.
Yeah? Oh, really? Huh.
The Yankee shortstop, and those people paid, I think, $1.2 billion for it. Put a price tag of $2 billion on it.
There we
It's
go.
not for sale because
It's
I
not
think you
for
enjoy
sale.
it. No, you
Yeah,
enjoy
no,
it.
I
It's
think
a
the
good
current
city.
owner,
It's
the
a good
current
sports
owners
city.
want to stick with it for a long
Right,
time,
it's a
I'm
good
sure.
city, good sports city, and you're making money.
Right, right. And then, do you remember when you came in July 5th of 1991 to the hotel in downtown, the Hyatt Regency, made the announcement?
Yep.
What was that like?
Well, I had my time wrong. You know, I had the Eastern time. I remember I said something like, well, that the hour ahead, that Denver is now a member, and somebody said, wait a minute, you're an hour, it's not that time. I sort of chuckled. But that was okay. I think that you guys were happy. And I think we were happy because we got $95 million in our coffers to split among our teams, plus the 95 from Miami.
So a year later, we find out that Mickey Modis is getting indicted on 123 felony counts. Did that have any negative impact on the franchise?
Jacobs played a big part because evidently Modis, being from Warren, Ohio, we knew that Youngstown was a different city. Steel Mill City, and their business, I think Modis and what's the other
Antonucci.
They were really great contributors to to Youngstown through their business. One of the few businesses that were successful, and that's why we looked at them. So I was surprised with what happened to Modis, and I think different basketball operation he wanted to put together.
Right.
And I remember he wanted me to be a witness for him, but obviously that fell through. It fell through.
So do you have any final thoughts on the whole selection process and whether Denver was a good pick? And
well, obviously Denver was a good pick. I mean, there was no doubt about it. Best pick number one when we out of the 13 teams. Won the team then, and I think it's been successful. At least as far as attendance is concerned, I think it's been a good addition to baseball. I haven't been interested in baseball since 1995. I left in 95 after 5 years with the league. But I think it's carrying its own.
yeah, well, you should come to Denver sometime and get a tour of what it's done for that entire lower downtown area. I mean, it's
well, none of that could have.
It's a boom town right now.
I'll say this: Paul Jacobs made a lot of that happen, and I've met a couple of the guys on the board. One fella still in New York, I forget his name. I still send Christmas cards to him. They're nice people. The people that I met who were on the board were good people, the kind of people you want to be owners of the team. You have a lady there also. I forget,
Linda Alvarado.
Alvarado. Yeah, we talked a little bit. We talked about hiring practices there. I felt that they ought to open up all the two new teams ought to open up their hiring practice to everybody. And I talked to her a bit about that. Paul Jacobs, and I hope that's happened. And
it's happened to some degree.
To some degree. Okay. Well, whatever.
Right. Well, I really appreciate your time.
No
It's great hearing the inside story and what really happened in the expansion.
Yeah.
And we'll be using this tape for History Colorado and a website that we're putting together.
Okay, good.
So we appreciate it.
No problem. Well, you've had a good franchise, and it's successful. And once you find out how to throw a curveball in that light air, then it'll be more successful.
Right.
But I'm sure the hitters like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they did one fun thing 3 years ago. They had built the stadium to 50,000 seats, and once the newness kind of wore off, we only really needed 43,000 seats, which was the original intent.
Right.
So what the ownership did is they basically took the upper right field and cut off all the upper deck seats and just put a big bar up there, and it's just a huge entertainment center.
No.
And
so
once in a while,
attendance now is 43,000. That's all.
well, now it's probably 46 now, but they cut off 3,000 or 4,000 seats and made this huge bar up there.
What's your average now?
Well, whatever 2.8 is in the 81.
85.
Yeah. So
30-some thousand.
30, 33, 34 maybe.
I've always felt you'd have a full house all the time, but you got to win.
No, we did though. I mean,
know for a while
for
we
the
did.
first 6 or 7 years, it was a full house. We
Right.
set the all-time attendance records when we were over in Mile High Stadium the first 2 years. But when they started to lose year after year after year,
Yeah, that's
attendance, as you well know, drops off.
I laugh because I forget the guy's name who's your first general manager, a PR guy, vice president. His father was associated with baseball.
McHale.
McHale.
John McHale.
Yeah. And what he did, they put he called me and said, "Can we put some seats in center field?" And I said, "No, that's no problem." But he put them in where the hitters, and so when I saw him, I said, "You son of a gun, you tricked me." I don't know how many seats you had. Probably had about 5,000-6,000 seats out in center field. Opening day,
Right,
I mean.
right,
Opening
right.
day.
Right.
That's when you set a new record, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, Denver's been a good baseball town. It was a good baseball town when I played there, and that made it easy for them to be number one. I mean, there was no doubt Denver wasn't going to get a team. Now, the owners might have politically, Reinsdorf or somebody might have gone someplace else, but there's nothing better than playing in a town, knowing the fans in a town, and that made it easy because I had experienced that.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Bill.
No problem.